When the PlayDate was first announced a couple of years ago, I found it really intriguing, if not a little bit gimmicky. The concept of this tiny handheld with a screen that looks like it comes from the original Game Boy era, and a crank that at first I thought was used to power the system, was something that I thought could be an absolute hit or a complete flop. I am absolutely passionate about handheld gaming devices, and anytime I see anything new and intriguing and different to the norm, I get really excited. But there was something about the PlayDate that just seemed like it was trying too hard to be different and coming across completely as a cheap gimmick. And I think a big part of that was the crank itself. Handheld gaming devices are meant to be small and pocketable, which the PlayDate is, but pocketable and handy to use also mean easy to hold. And with a crank on the side, I just didn't see how this could really work. And what was the crank really going to be used for if it wasn't going to be used to power the device? As we found out more and more about the PlayDate in the build up to its release, we found out that the crank is actually an analog controller, and that is actually a really interesting concept, a really interesting idea. There's been so many ideas for different styles of controllers throughout the years that specifically focus around analog inputs, and one that sticks to my mind is a racing type controller that instead of a D-pad or an analog stick has a steering wheel that you turn around. But these have never caught on. They've never been good enough to match the gaming experience that you get with a standard controller. However, the footage of the PlayDate looks like the analog crank could actually provide some genuinely different and interesting gameplay experiences. But something else we also found out about the PlayDate is that it's not got a backlit screen. This tiny black and white screen that looks like it comes from the Game Boy generation further cements that idea by not being backlit. And one thing we all know about the original Game Boy and handhelds of that generation is that not having a backlight is such a hindrance to the gaming experience. Having to try and to find lit locations to play your game, not being able to play your game in bed with the lights off, is a massive issue. And the fact that the PlayDate went for this concept, went for this idea of not having a backlight, was a massive downer for me. Especially when you consider the fact that this device costs around about $170. This device costs around about the same price as a Nintendo Switch Lite, or the same as a lot of these awesome high-end retro gaming consoles that are coming out these days, like the AYN Odin. To not have a backlit screen is a complete what were they thinking moment. Like, why on earth wouldn't they do it? The price is already pretty expensive at $170, so why not just make it closer to the $200 and give us all a backlight? If someone's going to be happy to pay about $170 for this tiny and unique gaming device, they're probably going to spend $200 anyway. And in this day and age, not having a backlit screen, no matter what the gimmick you're going for, no matter how reflective the screen is, and no matter how glorious it looks in the sunshine, it needs to be backlit so you can enjoy that portable handheld gaming device in any situation, because that's what portability is all about. Now, a lot of other criticisms have also come in the form of the shape of the PlayDate and how small and shallow it actually is, especially if you compare it to the more longer form factor of an actual Game Boy. It makes it really difficult to hold in your hand. But this for me has not been so much of a deterrent. I know a lot of people out there struggle with small portable handheld gaming systems and it cramps their hands, but I'm just not one of those people. But regardless, with the issues we've stated and at that high price point, I could just not commit to the PlayDate. It was just too expensive for what it offered. However, I'm still really interested in the PlayDate because I think it brings to the world of handheld gaming some really interesting concepts and features that we've needed to see for a while. Concepts and features that the likes of Nintendo seem to have left behind. Now, whereas initially I thought that analog crank was probably just going to be a gimmick, it looks like it's actually able to provide some really unique gaming experiences. And this is the thing I've always said about handheld gaming over the past generation. Handheld games have always been able to provide something unique that their home console counterparts could not provide. But then as we transitioned into this hybrid era of home console and handheld with the Switch, a lot of those unique concepts and ideas seem to have faded away. Original handhelds from the Game Boy generation and the like brought about intriguing concepts and ideas that had to work around the limitations of the hardware that they had. Then when you moved into the dual screen era of the DS, and more specifically the 3D aspects of the 3DS, they were really able to provide some really unique gaming experiences. Throw in the mix the PS Vita that had plenty of gimmicks of its own, like the back touchscreen, the touchscreen on the front and the camera, and games were able to provide something that you couldn't experience on their home console counterparts. But a lot of that ingenuity has faded and disappeared over the generations as we've moved to this more powerful handheld console gaming era. But the PlayDate provides us with some hope. It brings it back to that old school generation of more simplistic games that were focused about gameplay experience and being able to work around the limitations and the uniqueness of their actual hardware. And this is what really excites me about the PlayDate and what the PlayDate can bring to the world of handheld gaming. There's going to be a lot of teething issues and a lot of room to grow for the games that exist on the PlayDate currently, but it shows you what the potential is, what we can still do in the world of gaming instead of always focusing on huge worlds and amazing graphics. Furthermore, the way the PlayDate provides its games to the user is absolutely genius. Games are provided through a seasonal system whereby every week the player will receive a new game on their PlayDate. They don't know what that game's going to be. They will just find out when the game arrives. But that intrigue, that wonder, that excitement for what new gaming experiences around the corner, and the fact that it gives you enough time to experience that single solo game really solves a lot of the issues that I see with the digital world of gaming. The problem I have with digital games right now is that we have access to so many games right in front of us straight away. It's like standing in front of a huge buffet and not knowing what to eat first. I find myself dipping in and out of so many different games and never fully experiencing or appreciating them for what they are. But the PlayDate's idea and the concept of delivering games in this fashion, in a slow trickle, games that you already have paid for in the price of the $170, which does soften the blow a little bit, really makes for an exciting and really intriguing way to experience video games. It keeps the PlayDate and its games relevant. It makes players excited for what is to come, and it creates a conversation around the new games that have come out that week. And that, I think, is absolutely amazing and something I would love to see more manufacturers, more console manufacturers starting to use and try and keep players interested in this digital world of gaming. Now, if you want to see my thoughts on another unique and interesting handheld that's released recently, then check out my opinions on the Analog Pocket, which was a bit controversial and provoked quite a lot of heated debate in the comments.